All right, class, welcome back. I hope you guys all had a good lunch. So this afternoon we are going to spend a little bit more time finishing up our lesson from yesterday where we were working on learning about interdependent relationships in our environment in the world. So yesterday we talked about a couple of things. We started looking at relationships in our ecosystems. And the two examples that we looked at yesterday were how plants and animals depend on their environment, their surroundings, to help them grow and to live. One of the things that we looked real closely at yesterday was how plants depend on water and light and soil to live. The other thing that we talked a little bit about yesterday is how plants depend on animals for both pollination or to move their seeds around. And we looked at the honeybees with the flowers, and then we also looked at how birds can move seeds around for trees by eating them and then flying off and leaving their droppings behind. But today we're going to spend a little bit more time looking more closely at interdependent relationships. And when we talked yesterday, we talked about dependent and interdependent relationships, and we talked about the difference between the two, how dependent relationships are where just one animal or plant helps another, but how interdependent relationships are where they help each other. So we're going to look at a few examples of what we mean by interdependent relationships. So again, just from yesterday, this is the concept map that we completed. And again, we talked about how plants and animals can help each other, but how they are also dependent on their surroundings for things that they need to live too. Okay, so let's look at some more examples of interdependent relationships. This is a really important topic, and I want to make sure that you guys really understand this well. So from yesterday, we did talk about honeybees and flowers and how they can help each other. So just to recap, the honeybees fly into the flowers and they rub their bodies all over the inside and they get pollen all over them. And then they fly off to another flower and they do the same thing, except they rub that pollen all over the inside of the flower. Well, that is how flowers reproduce, or they make more flowers. That they need the bees to move the pollen from one flower to the next. The honeybees also need that pollen because when they fly back to their hives, they use that pollen to make honey for their babies, right? We talked about that yesterday. Okay, so here's one we haven't seen yet, and this is a picture of earthworms in soil. So earthworms, they need a very wet, moist place to live because we've seen them out on the sidewalk, how when they get out there on the sidewalk, they get all dried up. Well, they really need soil to live, and that's usually where we find them when we go out and dig in our gardens, right? But soil also needs earthworms too, and the earthworms do a couple of different things. When they slide all around in the dirt, they make little holes for water to get into, and when the earthworms leave their droppings behind, it helps the soil become even richer for other plants to grow in it. Bet you some of you guys have seen Finding Nemo, and this is a picture of a clownfish and a sea anemone. And if you guys remember from the movie, or if you haven't seen the movie, clownfish live inside of this sea creature. And for other fish, all of these little, the little arms of the sea anemone will sting you. But for clownfish, it doesn't sting them because that's where they live. So the sea anemone protects the clownfish from other fish that might want to eat it. But the clownfish, when they leave their droppings behind, that is actually food for the sea anemone. So again, another example of two different species helping each other, the clownfish and the sea anemone. Okay, here's a picture. We have a rhino, and then the little bird that's sitting there right on his nose is called an oxpecker. And these two guys really help each other out. The oxpecker, the little bird, they actually live on the rhino's back or on their bodies. And their job is to eat all of the bugs that land on the rhino because those bugs can make the rhino really, really sick. So one of the things that they love is these little bugs called ticks. So the oxpeckers, they hop all over the rhino and eat those bugs for food, but it also helps keep the rhino from getting sick from the ticks too. So those two guys are helping each other out as well. So I hope that helps you guys understand what I mean when I say interdependent relationships. And again, those are relationships where two animals or two plants, or a plant and an animal, or an animal and a plant, are helping each other out. All right, let's move on.